As the Philippines was struggling to fight against the Spaniards' war broke up between Spain and the United States, the Filipino revolutionaries took this as opportunity and fought for the Americans against a common enemy. However, their victory against Spain was only temporary, as they soon realized that they were simply betrayed and handed down to a new colonial power. This is the American occupation of the Philippines. So, good afternoon everyone. Before we formally start our discussion, allow me to introduce myself first. I'm Reina Banong Bias. So, let's commence our discussion about the American occupation of the Philippines. These are the timeline of American occupation of the Philippines. The United States compared to European powers such as Spain, Great Britain, and France was a relative latecomer to the colonial enterprise. The Philippines, then a long-time Spanish colony in Southeast Asia, was acquired by the Americans only in the final years of the 19th century. So, some suggest that the colony fell under the American control simply as an unavoidable consequence of the Spanish-American War. So, the question is, what happened in the Spanish-American War? What was the main reason or causes of Spanish-American War? How American acquired the Philippines by the hands of Spaniards? The Spanish-American War, which started in Cuba, changed the history of the Philippines. In 1898, the United States launched an attack on Spain, citing its inhumane treatment of the people of Cuba in the Philippines as one of the reasons for the conflict. Prior to the war, Cuba was also in a war for independence from Spanish colonial rule. The U.S. was moved by reports of Spanish atrocities against the Cuban people and was compelled by humanitarian concern, desiring to intervene and minimize their suffering. So the United States sent its naval forces to the said colony in the Caribbean. President McKinley sent USS Maine to Havana to ensure the safety of American citizens in interest and to underscore the urgent need for reform. USS Maine dispatched to Havana and lost on February 15, 1898. The U.S. battleship Maine suddenly exploded from the inside and sank while docked at the Havana harbor. So biglang sumabog ito and it was result the death of more than 200 individuals. Because of this incident, nagkaroon ng investigation that some people said that the inside of ship nagsimula ang problema kaya sumabog ito. And some people said that there is a reason na ang Spaniards ang nagpapasabog sa barko. There's a contradictions claims ang bawat isa patungkol sa nangyaring pagsabog o pagpapasabog sa USS Maine. Though an official declaration of war was not issued by the United States until April 25, 1898, strong public opinions against the Spanish had been extensively appear, which even retained the rallying cry, "Remember the Maine to hell with Spain." This photograph shows the USS Maine. Pedro Paterno, a lawyer from Manila, volunteered to act as a negotiator between Aguinaldo and Governor Primo de Rivera to end the clashes. Paterno proposed to Aguinaldo. In succeeding month, practicing shuttle diplomacy, Paterno traveled back and forth between Manila and Biak na Bato, carrying proposal and counter-proposals. Paterno efforts lead to a peace agreement called the Pact of Biak na Bato. On December 1897, the Pact of Biak na Bato was signed by General Emilio Aguinaldo and Spanish Governor General Fernando Primo de Rivera to provisionally stop the armed conflict between the Filipinos and Spaniards. The conversation between Paterno and Aguinaldo, Paterno said that humiling lang sina Emilio Aguinaldo na kahit ano, wag lang ang independensya. That all the missionaries in parokya give the hand in the Philippines and all lands. Even Philippines can establish own assembly. pantay-pantay ang katayuan ng Pilipino at Espanyol, pati sa posisyon sa pamahalaan. But lastly, Paterno said that Spain will pay 8,000 pesos. Emilio Aguinaldo agreed the negotiation between Paterno. He signed the Pact of Biak na Bato to end the revolution between Philippines and Spain. He surrendered the firearms and he exiled in Hong Kong and other revolutionaries. In return, Aguinaldo received 8,000 Mexican pesos in compensation for the revolutionaries and an amnesty. After receiving a partial payment of 400,000 pesos, Aguinaldo left for Hong Kong on December 7, 1897. While in Singapore, Emilio Aguinaldo met Benjamin San Luis and Roncesvalles Wildman, the U.S. Consul General in Hong Kong, also made a similar pronouncement. The conversation between San Luis and Aguinaldo, they discussed about the Cuba and Spanish War. United States decided to help Cuba to have an independence and wanted to help Philippines to fight the Spaniards. San Luis said that United States gave them a support when it comes to firearms and money, and promised that Emilio Aguinaldo and other revolutionaries will back to the Philippines and to fight the Spanish. And for that, the American will fight also the Spaniards sa ilalim ng dagat ng Espanya ng Maynila. Mapapabilis ang pagsuko ng Espanya para sa Cuba. It stated here that the America are not interested in the Philippines or in Asia. And they said that Emilio need to exile in Singapore to meet Edward Spencer Pratt to discuss the detail on how American help the Philippines fight the Spaniards. And Emilio said that all they want is for the United States of America to recognize our sovereignty. State arrived in the Philippines during the Battle of Manila Bay in May 1898. The U.S. Navy under Admiral George Dewey destroyed the Spanish fleet. The United States then deployed troops in Manila. The Spaniard was defeated and American win the battle. With the looming Spanish defeat in the island, Aguinaldo resumed to the struggle against the colonizer and declared independence on June 12, 1898. However, the U.S. support for the Philippines was fueled by American self-interest rather than genuine desire to aid the Filipinos in their quest for independence. The U.S. initially pledged to assist the Filipino cause and assist them in establishing a democratic government and achieving eventual independence. But after its victory of the Spain, the U.S. broke its promise and planned to set up the Philippines up for annexation. The Filipino failed to realize that the American and Spanish officials in the colony were secretly forging the agreement. This agreement outlined the Spanish in Manila, headed by Governor General Basilio Agustin, to surrender of Dewey and not to the Filipino. The Treaty of Paris of 1898. Faced with defeat, the Philippines was ceded to the United States by Spain in 1898 after payment of $20 million to Spain in accordance with Treaty of Paris ending the Spanish-American War. So, itong meeting na to is hindi alam na ni Emilio Aguinaldo or ng Pilipinas na may naganap na kasabwatan sa American at sa Espanya. So, when Emilio Aguinaldo heard about it, he sent Felipe Agoncillo in Paris. While Felipe Agoncillo, representative of Aguinaldo government, wanted to participate in the drafting of the treaty, he was denied to do so on the grounds that the Philippines, although already declared independent by Filipino revolutionaries during the time, was considered a Spanish possession. As a result, Filipino public opinion and sentiment regarding their own futures were never considered by the attending commissionaries, because the main reason of this is the transferred Philippine sovereignty from Spain to the United States. So, during this time, ang Amerika ay binili nila ang Pilipinas sa Espanya ng 20 million US dollar. So, hindi alam ni Emilio Aguinaldo ang sabuatan sa Espanya at Amerika. Nag-iba na ang ihip ng hangin. Ang dating kakampi ng Pilipinas na ang bansang Amerika ay unti-unti nang naging kaaway nito mula sa pagkakatalo ng Espanya sa Amerika. So on December 10, 1897, the Treaty of Paris was signed. So tuluyan nang nasakop ang Pilipinas sa kamay ng mga Amerikano dahil sa agreement nila sa Espanya na ibenta ng Espanya ang Pilipinas sa 2 milyon. San Juan Bridge Incident on February 4, 1899, a U.S. sentry shot and killed 2 Filipino soldiers. These incidents sparked the Philippine-American War, which could cost far more money and took far more lives than the Spanish-American War. Because of this incident, they request sa paglilitis para malaman kung sino ang nagpasimula ng gulo. And then, Arthur MacArthur ordered American to invade Filipinos even wala pa talagang formal na pagsisiyasat. And that's why nagalit si Emilio. So sabi niya kay Ulitres na tigilan na ang putukan. But sabi ni Ulitres, hindi natin dapat tigilan ang putukan dahil ito ay nasimulan na. So, ayon sa investigation ni Philip Buencamino, sinadya ng American troops na nagpapaputok sa mga Filipino and its cause as digmaan. So, this is the primary source of Treaty of Paris. The final version of the treaty, through Article 1, 2, and 3, ultimately obliged Spain to relinquish its claims on its colonial territories such as Cuba, Puerto Rico, and Philippines in exchange of 20 million US dollar from the United States. From the Article 4, 5, 6, 7 of the Treaty of Paris outlined various provisions regarding the rights and legal status of individuals in the territories being transferred from the Spain to the United States. From the Article 8, ensure that the literary, artistic, and industrial property rights acquired by Spaniards in the territories ceded under the Treaty of Cuba, Puerto Rico, the Philippines, and others will continue to be respected. From Article 9, establish an reciprocal agreement between the United States and Spain regarding port due for merchant ships. From Article 10, it outlined the process of ratification for the treaty. It states the treaty will be ratified by the President of the United States with advice and consent of the Senate and by Queen Regent of Spain. The Benevolent Assimilation Proclamation ay isang patakaran ng United States para sa Pilipinas, and it was proclaimed by William McKinley on December 21, 1898. After signing of a treaty proclaiming that the code military government maintained in Manila is to be extended to the whole Philippine island and that United States government succeeds the sovereignty of the Spanish government over the Philippines, end of quote. After a long debate, the U.S. Congress ratified the Treaty of February 6, 1899. Yet, betrayal of the alliance was complete. President McKinley predicted the very concept of the declaration of war against Spain by deciding to occupy the Philippines. The United States originally portrayed its colonization of the Philippines as a mission for benevolent assimilation, promising to modernize and civilize the country in a positive light. Benevolent assimilation was a term used by American politicians to justify their imperialism and control over the Philippines. The U.S. claimed to have a duty to bring its superior political, economic, and cultural values to the Philippines, promising to modernize and improve their lives in education, infrastructure, and other amenities. However, these policies was often used to mask their true intention of imperialism. The Filipinos eventually saw through this corrupt statement and felt betrayed by broken promises of the Americans. They had initially welcomed Americans and even fought alongside them for independence from Spain. but now turn against them. This led to yet another bloody struggle with the Filipino army, ill-equipped, under-trained, discouraged, and still in the process of establishing itself against the stronger, better trained, and technological advanced imperial power. After briefly tasting independence, the Philippines had to fight for it once again. The escalating conflict between the United States and the Philippines. Ang pangunahing layunin nito ay masakop ang Pilipinas sa pamamagitan ng pagkikipagsundo upang makuha ang loob at tiwala ng mga Pilipino. So, inilinaw rin ng mga Amerikano na ginawa nila ito hindi upang manakop, manlupig o sakupin ang bansang Pilipinas, kundi tulungan ang Pilipinas na maiahon. Ngunit, hindi ito ang naramdaman ng Pilipino sa kamay ng mga Amerikano. For the primary source is a proclamation issued by the United States government on December 21, 1898 regarding the administration of the newly acquired Philippine Island following the Spanish-American War. It outlines the intention of the United States to assume control over the Philippines and emphasize a policy of benevolent assimilation. The proclamation asserts the United States comes as a friends, not conquerors, to protect the inhabitants and their rights. It promises to respect private property, maintain order, open ports to international commerce, and promote individual rights and liberties. However, it also emphasized the authority of the United States to govern and maintain stability in the region. Address adopted by the Anti-Imperialist League, February 10, 1899. The United States' decision to annex the Philippines after the Spanish-American War of 1898 prompted the formation of the American Anti-Imperialist League. Prominent individuals from a variety of fields made up the League, which opposed the expansionist policies of United States government. Former President Grover Cleveland, former Senators George Boatley and John Carlisle, writer Mark Twain and Andrew Carnegie, activist Jane Addams and Edward Atkinson, and philanthropist Andrew Carnegie were among them. These league's members thought that annexing the Philippines went against American principles of liberty and self-determination. They maintained that imperialism went against the fundamental ideas upon which the U.S. was established, especially the notion of honoring the sovereignty of other countries. These leagues promoted more restrained use of force and worked to increase public awareness of the detrimental effects of imperialism. Anti-imperialists claimed that imperialism as a movement was irrelevant to society due to the informality of its actions. And particularly, imperialists neglected other culture and forced them to follow the American culture. The advocates of these movements suggested that annexation will be economically furthering since territory separation is time and finance consuming process. The League was formed in 1898 to fight the annexation of the Philippines. George S. Boatley became the first president of Anti-Imperialist League. So this league is pinaglalaban nila yung karapatan at pagmamanipula ng mga Amerikano na kontrolin ang Pilipinas. The member of Anti-Imperialist League is nakikita nila ang negative side ng American na kumukontrol sa economically and the Philippines. So, against ang membro ng anti-imperialist sa mga Amerikano sa kanilang pamamahala sa Pilipinas. The group wanted to free the Philippines by the hands of Americans. So, the anti-imperialists opposed first expansions. They believed that imperialism violated the fundamental principles that just republican government must derive from the consent of governed. The League argued that such activity would necessitate the abandon of American ideals of self-government and non-intervention. So, from the primary source, the writer acknowledged that the ratification of the treaty with Spain will technically charge the relationship between the United States and Philippine Islands. However, they argued that this change does not alter the stance of the anti-imperialists regarding the future of the island, also the legitimacy of the American claim to the Philippines, suggesting that it may rest on the conquest purchased from the Spain or both. They assert that such an actions are inconsistent with the principles of the United States and pose risk to peace both domestically and internationally. So that's end of my part. Julius will be continued to further discussion. Thank you everyone and hope you learned something from me. God bless.